Greetings and welcome to another building showcase. I am Darkling and this of course is Ark Survival Evolved. Today we'll be taking a tour of the Scrolled Fortress. Now this is one of my favourite builds. It's got a lot of shaping, a lot of artistic value. It was included by Mazion in his Base Invasion series, so if you haven't checked that out, there'll be a link in the description for you to follow. Otherwise stick around and hopefully you'll enjoy it. I thought I'd start this recording up in the air where we can see this base a lot more clearly, and this has to be one of my favourite builds out of all the builds I've done. The storage base I built that first came up with the scrollwork designs, that's on the other side of this map, and this is the first base I actually incorporated the design into the actual base design of it. So I'm quite pleased with the outcome of it. What we'll do is we'll have a bit of a fly around it and you can see what it looks like. So I've got 3 separate landing pads. I could have joined them all together, but I decided against it. There was a few things that I had to do in the process of actually creating the supporting structure to actually allow foot traffic through it, to actually use them as functional rampways or stairways. The passages have to be a certain size in order to fit stairwells and things like that. It was problematic to really get it all to come together, but I'm quite pleased with the end result. The outside of it has a nice scroll over design. Now this is what the base was originally designed to have, because I thought, man, it would be really cool if the outside of the base scrolled right over. That would be really neat. Of course, when I thought of this, I didn't think of the fact that from a distance, you can't even tell that it's scrolled over. It just looks like it's a beveled edge. So that was unfortunate. There is a few aspects of this base that are quite cool. I've got a floating sea pen. I actually just went through recently and did the glass work on it. I had a problem with the glass being reset. There's also over here, I built my first raft submarine. I'm not going to do a tour of it. If you want to see that, you can check out the Mazion tour. I will link that in the description. The reason I'm not going to tour it is this actually is broken. The sloped underwater pods got corrupted, and when they got fixed, unfortunately I can't place them back exactly where they were, which is highly problematic. Every time I try and place it, it actually just crashes the instance, so it's just really not worth doing. So let's have a look at for the top. I've actually got my Taming Pin at the very top of my base this time. Something I've not done in the past, but I figured why not actually incorporate it as part of a main design. I'm trying to get a good angle on this. So yeah, this is my standard Taming Pin, enlarged drop zone and whatnot. There's been a few changes since the Mazion tour. I noticed a few problems that I fixed. It's nothing too major. For the most part it looks virtually the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop off the bird and we're going to take a side entrance. So what I'm going to show you first is the Underworld. Now I built this off the ground so that I could get the scroll work in place, and that meant that I had a large underside, and I built myself an Underworld. So in the center it's meant to be a bit of a terrarium idea where that's meant to be a sun, and I had the Advanced Raft mod spotlights shining on it to try and make it a bit brighter. Didn't quite work out the way I'd planned, as a lot of things don't in Ark, but I had a lot of fun doing it and I managed to make the central part at least semi-interesting. So in the Underworld, obviously you've got the entrance there. I've got all my Thyla storage in here. I put a stable underneath the actual entry ramp. industrial forge. Now that actually goes up through the roof there. There is an access port at the very top. Again, just some more stable storage. This here is the entrance to the main base. It does look a bit strange from this angle, but basically when you build entrances like I do and you have that slope coming through, all you end up with underneath is a giant slope piece. And I thought, well, maybe if I could mask it and make it sort of tie in a bit better with the underworld, it would come out better. This is actually upside down, and it's hard to explain quite what I mean. If we were playing vanilla, we would have the woodwork cross beams on that up there, but this wouldn't. So what I actually managed to do is flip a ceiling over at one point, and then I've built off that. So everything here is literally upside down. So normally if you build a wall upwards, you can attach a ceiling on top of it. But if you build a wall downwards, you have to put an extra wall to place the ceiling. Well, because I flipped this upside down, it's actually got the upside down properties as well. So I could actually snap a ceiling to the bottom of these without any problem at all. So it was a nice little tie-in. I played with it a little bit, and I do want to have a go at a proper upside down build at some point, but I haven't quite got there yet. So running around here, I've got the little Underworld Castle. I'm quite pleased with how basic and simple this looks. I didn't want to go too crazy. There's a little stairwell over there, and that's meant to look a little bit like a tower. I actually added another one that's kind of tower-esque. It's not meant to be too special. It's just sort of to add a little bit of a theme to it. Again, another stable over there. There's plenty of space under here. It's almost like a little town. I do like thinking of it as the underworld. So if you go into the castle, this is basically the armory, storage for armor and whatnot. Here's the actual armory itself. Again, there's some bits and pieces from the advanced raft mod, which I used for the submarine, but again, that's broken. Here's my barracks. Nothing too major. It's pretty standard stuff. I've got a side entrance for raft unloading if we need to come in and swap over armor and whatnot quickly. Again, there's a pier out the end that I showed you before, and at the top of the sea pen also can be used for storage for rafts. I've added an entrance there, so I'll show you out there soon. I'll just finish showing you the castle. It's nothing too flash. You'll notice that the color schemes on here is a little bit funny. That's because the tiles, the pieces I used, you can't actually color both sides of. So that's a railing at the bottom, and on the outside it's the right color, but on this side it's the wrong color. So the way the painting works, it never actually paints both sides after you change it to a half wall. We go up another level, and obviously that's one of my troughs. I've got my little spawn area here in my tower, and we can overlook the overworld from the top. There's no actual access to the very top of that tower. You will see me up there, and that is actually me. This account is actually my other half's. I've got this hosted as a non-dedicated session, so I had to connect via another computer just to get it to load up properly. That's cool. So that leads up to the top floor and the main level. So I'll go back down and we'll get out to the sea pen and show you that first. Down one more level. I often get lost in my own bases. So if you haven't seen the Mazion tour, definitely check that out. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time with Maz. He's a really nice guy, but you'll note that there's a few things changed, like here. So the sloped underwater pods that I used to gain access, I had to actually adjust it and put it in a different place. Again, that's because of the crashing. So we can run down here into the underwater pod area, and there is a ring of underwater pods around the outside with a side room, and I built this for my beehives. Now the reason these are down here is because originally they were up in one of my landing pads, and the beehives used to sting you if you got too close to them, which was really annoying because I didn't realize that when I built them up on the landing platform. And then when I actually put the rare flowers in them to activate them, I found that when I was landing flyers on the landing pad, I was close enough that it was stinging me and actually rendering me unconscious when I hopped off my mount, so that was really problematic. So if you look down to the bottom here, you can see that I've spaced out the vacuum pods, and that's allowed me to build a structure that is floating from above the ground. There is a spot in the corner there where it does go underground. I'm running the crystal clear mod on this, so you can actually see underwater quite a lot clearer. That's for recording purposes. I've got a couple of underwater pods there where you can actually access them just for emergencies if you're about to asphyxiate or anything like that. And there's also a tech generator hanging out the bottom there. So I'm quite pleased with this kind of sea pen. It's not very practical for a new player. Obviously there's a whole ton of vacuum pods, but this is my single player. This isn't legit. There's no mining involved. This was me having fun. I do that a lot. I'm not too worried when I'm doing builds. Like if I'm out to play the game, I'll play the game. Otherwise, you know, I'll just have fun with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back around. We'll go this way, and we're going to access this from the outside again. Down here, something may attack me, I don't know. So we'll have a run around the side. Now there is actually some glass foundations along here. You'll probably hear me stand. Oh, there's one there. I had to extend the foundations out there a little bit. Around the rest of the build it was fine. There was just a couple of spots where I needed a little bit extra foundation support. So this is how I do my entrances on a lot of bases. I really like using the giant sloped hatch frames, or the behemoth hatch frames, and this will fit a giga through it. So it's not a tiny entrance, but I much prefer it to gates. There's something about gates that I really don't like in this game. They're either too massive or too small, and that kind of frustrates me. So in the center here we have my storage hub. Now you'll see this kind of storage in a lot of my builds. I really like this kind of storage. When I finally figured out how I like my storage, I replicated it, and I do variations on this all over my builds, and it's stuck. It really has. I really enjoy it. I think it's a great way to lay everything out. I like having everything separate, and on the inside it's pretty basic. All my basic crafting stuff, kitchen on the other side, really bad overlapping of the cookers, preserving, and this is the first time I actually started trying the sloped tri-roofs for ramps. I've actually perfected the, I'll say perfected, I've perfected the ramp process using this. I can actually attach railings to the side of these now. It takes a little bit of finiking to get it right, and you have to have something below it, but it definitely works. You can also access some of the vaults via the back, through the actual railing, and then on top we have a nice little landing pad, and that is for anybody coming in for kibble in a hurry. It's nice and easy to get down to the kitchen. So like I said, this is a pretty basic setup for me. I tend to keep things with crafting and kitchen fairly simple, and I always keep it together with my storage setup. So from here we're going to head up into the main structure. Now I was actually quite pleased with the way I did this, the fact that you actually have to go up into the scroll in order to actually get up into the access. And as I said before, the industrial forge sticks up, so I can access the forge from above it, which is great. There is a few snapping issues around here. I have worked out what has gone wrong. Some of my later builds are a lot tidier in a lot of aspects, but this was me early on learning. So basically the supporting structures are by default pretty large. I would love to have actually used this space for something a bit more interesting, but at the moment this kind of structure is basically just to allow me up into here. So we're below one of the landing pads at the moment. We can go up into the main structure there. We're going to go into the first landing pad. Now, this particular build, each of the landing pads have what I call vanity builds. A vanity build is something that isn't really needed. So on this particular one, we have my hospital wing and my med lab. So we'll start in the hospital wing. Now, I've left the glass on the top, it's one way. So if you're above, it's solid. From below, it's nice and open, so you get a really nice open feel about it. So in Ark, a hospital wing is very important because you're forever getting hurt. I've tried to keep it fairly accurate. I mean, got some chem benches in there just for some aesthetic pleasure, mortar and pestles just for, again, the aesthetics. Again, the whole thing is aesthetic, so you know. The advanced raft has the round crop plot things, which I really quite like. I think they make a really nice addition to the builds. I'd like to see some more things that look a bit more like pots. So again, the beds from the advanced rafts and the side tables, I really like that mod. I think it's a great mod. We have a little toilet area, nothing too major. And across the way we have the med lab, which is obviously always tied with the hospital. Here's my quarantine room. Here's the venting, obviously. So if anybody's super sick, we can put them in the quarantine room. They've got their own toilet and whatnot. Again, the roof is set so you can't see it. Then we have the airlock into the actual research place, so if you're cooking up a virus or any other kind of bioweapon, this would be the place to be. And I've used the Jones poop and egg mod. I used to use that quite a lot, actually. I don't use it so much anymore. There's we call it the incubator. Now, I really like the incubator from that mod. However, you cannot place them very close together. And I'll show you what I wanted to use them for soon. Again, lots of chem benches. I really wouldn't put that many in an actual build. Thankfully I didn't pay for this one, so all good. So from here, to get into the next one, we're actually going to go up into the main structure and then come back down. So again, up we go. I probably should have put some crops in here or something just to add a little bit of foliage. So we get up to the top. Now these can be used as landing platforms, and I have used them for that a number of times. I haven't got anything on them at the moment, just to keep them nice and clear for the recording. Again, the snapping here is pretty shocking, but I've learned a lot since I built this. So I'm going to show you the very top of this before we go into the other side. This is my greenhouse. There's a lot of plots in here, way more than I probably need. Again, another lot of chick trough and Jones poop and egg. The other ones aren't set to work. These ones are actually turned on for collection. And if you go up into the top here, this is my actual main spawn area, kitchen. So this would be where I actually make kibble as such. I would transport it down into the kitchen below, but this is for actually using the Taming Pin. Now above there is the Taming Pin, which we'll just shoot up and have a quick look at. So it's pretty basic, and it's basically so that when you're taming something, you can go down to the room, you can see up through the floor, nice and easy, nothing too flash. We'll go back down. I really like that part of the advanced raft mod. You can actually get the maps. That's so cool. Oh, and I also use I like using these metal boxes for benches. I think they're really cool. I actually do want to build a base using just the metal boxes sometime. I reckon that would be an interesting thing to try and do. So we'll go down to the next one, and I can't remember specifically what's in this wing. God, some of the snapping in here is terrible. Okay, so this is the schoolhouse and the cryo chamber. So school is nice and basic. I kept it pretty simple. Yeah, that snapped through really badly as well. So obviously some tables, quills and whatnot from the Advanced Raft mod, as well as area to drinks and what. Got all the desks and blackboard, piano, because you know, why not. Lockers for your pupils, toilets. That's pretty basic. This is me using up the space that I had, because I didn't want the landing pads too thin, but in order to make them thicker I ended up with big gaps in them, so I basically just came up with ideas to fill them. Here's the Cryo Chambers. It can be either a prison or literally just storing people. If it's a prison, that's why the turrets are here. Some of them are open, some of them are closed. I would like to have used shorter pieces for the open, obviously, because a wall isn't that big when it would open, but you've got to use what you have. I did want to use the incubators underneath each of the people, but again, that's why I found out that you can't put them very close together. It would have looked really cool if each person was standing on an incubator. That would have been really neat. At the back of each of the chambers I have another of the the Jones Poop and Egg mod, and the ones that are in use, they're turned on, and I used some various pieces at the top there from the Advanced Raft mod to make it look like something else was going on. Just some interesting little modules. I did the same here. This is I think it's a mutator in the middle, and there's various Poop and Egg mod stuff and Advanced Raft mods around the outside to create something that doesn't look very arkish. So yep, there's a whole bunch of guys in storage at the moment. I quite like how this came out. I've never seen anyone do a cryo chamber. I'm sure somebody else could do it better, but this is my take on it. And I'll show you the top of one of the landing pads. This is pretty basic. I might actually fly over to the next one, it'd be a lot quicker. I really don't need that many tech troughs in this build. One tech trough should cover the entire base area, but I didn't really think of that at the time. I think the range has been extended a little bit. So we'll go down into the other side. This is the guest wing, and I did what I quite like doing with stone on the bottom and wood on top. It gives a nice feel. So this side is the actual sleeping quarters. I think there's 5 rooms here, and they're all the same. So it's basically a bedroom with cupboard, side table, and a toilet. So pretty basic. Again, another filler. I quite like my Vanity Builds, but I haven't been doing quite as many lately because I've kind of overdone the same thing over and over again. It gets a little bit tiresome, and I haven't fixed the glass there. It's unfortunate. So these are the showers. If you've seen any of my other builds, you'll know that I've done a few shower scenes. Mazion would have loved this one because you can see the people having a shower. If you don't get the reference, you'll have to watch the original tour. That does give you an idea as to there's actually a gap around the outside. See how I actually put it together, and we'll cut through here. Again, more toilets. And from the entranceway into here, this is the dining and mingling area. And this is obviously full wood along the sides. And I used the metal boxes to add some shaping to the structure. Now I have a thing about overlapping fridges and the grills. I quite like doing it. It just takes up less space, and you can get some pretty interesting looks out of it. I had some problems getting some of the metal boxes to line up like I did, so what I actually did is I placed them way out here, and then I stepped them back into it, so I didn't have to worry about them trying to clip to the existing pieces I already had. It came out pretty good. Okay, we'll jump on one of these guys, and we'll have another quick look around. So that is this build. I'm quite stoked with how it came out. I really enjoy this base to muck around in. I haven't played from it a huge amount. After I built it, I had planned to get some decent playtime in, but in the end I joined the new Terra Nova server group and I never quite got there. Never quite got around to playing on here much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on sticky claws and I'm going to show you one of the things I like doing in this base. Now, I've talked about this with some other people about running races around the outside here, because like I said, this goes all the way around the outside. Oop. Way we go over again. So it's a pretty straightforward build. There's a lot of curvature to it and I really like that. Again, some of the snapping isn't great, but this is the second build I used the snapping techniques to create the scrolls, and as far as it goes, it's fairly tidy. It's tidy enough for most players. I now have higher standards. I probably wouldn't accept building something quite as sloppily, but yeah, at the time it worked well for me, and I'm still really proud of this base. I know it's flaws, but it came out really nice. I hope you enjoyed the look around. I definitely enjoy showing it off. This is one of my favorites, like I said. If you haven't checked out the Mazion tours, I'll put the links in the description below. Give us a thumbs up if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already, and most importantly, take care and enjoy your building.